Hi everybody, thanks for stopping by to check out the latest from Sailing Emerald Steel. In our last video, The Times Are Changing, we received many opposing comments about rules and regulations regarding sailors. Some were pro and some were against, naturally. So in this video, we're going to be sharing with you how we feel about the rules concerning anchoring, because anchoring is such an integral part of cruising.
So after reading all these comments, some was pro regulations and against the bumps, another one was against regulations. So really the truth is that both of you are someplace in between. So I would like to share with you our experiences, because what happened is, if you live on your house and you have your boat in the marina, you don't really see what's all about. Most of you get the idea from reading newspapers or see things on the television, but not actually first hand. So give you a little background. That over 30 years ago, when we decided that we like to live a free life as a sailors, we made a decision that we like to follow in the footsteps of Slocum and likes. What it means is this thing here. As the sailors of the past who had no radio to call for help, that's how we decided that we will try to be totally self-sufficient. So we always imagined to be able to anchor places we like to and be able to travel without any kind of obstacles. Now, over 30 years of sailing, I can tell you that much, that not one single time we called anyone for the help, of any kind of help. We always was able to stand up to the task and fix it ourselves. Throughout the years, many times we got hit by the other boats. Sometimes by the bomb boat, sometimes by cruising boat, sometimes by the day sailor, and sometimes even by a luxury yacht. Never once we called harbor police, nor tried to file an insurance claim. Many times in the night I had to wake up, put a clothes on me, get out on the bow of my boat and push the boat off of us and help them re-anchor, but we never once called for help. If we end up on anchorage where was a, for example, gale or storm blowing, we always made sure we had enough anchor gears, and if we had to stay up all night long powering against the winds to be safe, we always done it. We never called the harbor police or a coast guard. Actually, for all these years, I can only remember calling a coast guard to find out the status of the bar when we was entering the harbor, but never for help. And I can actually tell you then, the way I feel, I will be kind of embarrassed to call a coast guard and let somebody else's life put online because I decide to go cruising. I cannot say the same thing for Coast Guard, because throughout the years they call us pretty many times on a VHF radio to request boarding for inspection. Sometimes on the high seas, sometimes we were entering a harbor. Very seldom when we were at the anchor. When you're at the anchor, you usually are bothered by the harbor police. Now, Coast Guard comes very handy to some people, because like for example, when we were anchored one time in the Yaquina River, Oregon, I couldn't believe it. In the one afternoon, Coast Guard towed in 3 different boats coming down from the Washington because of different kind of problems, breaking of the equipment and so forth.
They all called Mayday, right?
Yeah, they all called Mayday. One lost a rudder and different kind of things. The point is that if it's not for Coast Guard, God help those boaters. So that's pretty much kind of explained to you, and you will understand why I brought this thing up. When we anchored in San Diego many years ago, many people, so-called bums, they moved to the anchorage. What really happened was this thing here. A lot of times you have a person, say a fisherman, whose boat is pretty much run down, wooden boat, leaks. It's not worth it to fix it. It's even very expensive to dispose of it. Yeah. So what they do, they transfer the title to someone who has no money, no responsibility, say for $1.
And he doesn't know anything about sailing or anchoring.
So for $1, he become a boat owner. So one day somebody tow him into the anchorage. Believe it or not, they don't even have the money to buy an anchor. They just take the engine out of the boat and drop it overboard, and that is the anchor gear.
Free living.
Yeah. The first time winds picks up and they start dragging the bay, sometimes they hit other boats and create a fiasco.
And they're a nuisance.
Yeah, they are a nuisance. They call, people call harbor police. Now, the problem with the harbor police is this thing here. Then the harbor police, when you call them and tell them, hey, look at here, that person dragging is going to end up on the rocks, they do totally nothing about it. Now, when a boat sinking, and you call the harbor police and say, hey, the boat's sinking, They come there, they take pictures, the driver boat around a couple of times and they leave. We were very surprised in the beginning why they do that, but I really believe there is a reason why they do that. The many marinas in town complained that they had vacancies, because there used to be, not like now, the marinas you have to wait 2-3 years to get on it. There used to be pretty much vacancy. So people didn't like then people come into town, anchor for free, and they leave. So they tried to stop that. Now, as you probably know or not, anchoring falls under rules of navigation, and no one could control it except Congress. So the really city ordinances could not apply for it. Anything open to ocean, to a point of obstruction, say for example like a breach, it's all considered to be open water. So because the cities could not change the regulations, what happened is they lobbied in Congress, and eventually Congress gave the rights to local authorities to control their own waters in a harbor. So once they had that one in their power, what they decided next is how to get rid of all anchorages. In other words, they used bombs as an excuse, but that was not really a reason, because the truth is this here. They could very easily apply existing laws, like for example when you get a Coast Guard inspection, to make sure you have all the aids to navigation, you have a power to move your boat under sail or a power.
Holding tanks and so forth.
Things like holding tanks, things like fire extinguisher, and so on and so forth. Believe me, 95% of all those boats will never pass the inspection. Mm-hmm. So they could have done that, but they didn't do that. What they did, they went smart way about it. When a boat was sinking, they didn't do nothing. Then when the boat sunk, they put a big article in the newspaper saying that the city is going to have to spend $40,000 to leave the boat out because people didn't care and just let it sink it. So you see, instead of spending a couple hours with a pump to pump the boat or tow her into yard for say a price of a couple $1,000, they let her sink, and then they could use that as excuses for stop all anchorages. As for harbor police, you know, when we were anchoring on a free anchorage, they would stopping boaters going to the shore in a dinghy for inspection. If you have a life jacket, if you had a registration, or if you had a sound device, and on and on. They would do it pretty much on a daily basis. But you guess what? Once we were in a mooring, not a single time I saw harbor police stopping anyone for safety inspection. So really what they were doing was just harassing people who were in the free anchorage. So you see, once they stopped anchorages, everybody paid the price. Not only bums, but also cruisers who like to come to the town, visit. Now San Diego has a 90 days anchorage for the cruisers, although it's located right next to the Coast Guard and airport. Noisy place like hell, but they do have it. But if you want to stay here longer, you are pretty much stuck. Now, somebody might ask, why would you want to stay longer? It's a very simple reason, okay? Let's say, for example, if you come here during a hurricane season where it's not a good time to leave for Mexico or South Seas, you want to maybe stay longer. Or if you want to sail up north and you got here right in the beginning of the winter, you have to wait for winter months to be over to be able to safely sail. So as you can see, anchoring, it's not only important to save money if that's what your reason is, but also there are for security reasons to be have a place to seek shelter. Now, it is true that while we were anchoring in San Diego before we take off cruising, there was a lot of problems with those bombs. There was a lot of drinking, a lot of parties, a lot of drugs, a lot of fighting, and so on. So yes, they were very, very much nuisance. Why should the boaters who are responsible should put up with something like that? And plus, a lot of good places, like for example a shelter island in front of the beach, it was a nice location. All the places was taken by bombs, so so-called regular boaters had no place to anchor. So for that you need rules and regulations.
But we're not talking about people that were poor, that had, you know, humble, modest boats at all. We're just talking about people that were...
Yeah, there was people who would rather spend the money for booze than have the boat prevent from sinking.
Right.
But because of that, I think certain laws are very important to keep things in order so people can be safe. But I tell you why I'm against all kinds of laws. I escaped from a communist country when I was a young man, and I remember times when the cops could come to your house, knock on your door, and take you away, and never to be seen again or heard of. I'm not scared from the bombs or bad guys as much as I'm scared from a government who has that kind of power. Because I realize that from a young age, then you cannot fight against government. You can fight against bad people, you can take a stand, but not against government. So that's why I'm very much against rules and regulations which infringe on our freedom. There are two types of cruisers. One is who lives in a house, have a boat in a marina. One day they decide to sail around the world. Then after 4 or 5 years they come back, they go back into the house. They might keep the boat in the marina, or they might sell it. But the point is that they are not very much affected by all these different rules. Because even when they are cruising, a lot of times they end up on the marina or up on the mooring or so on. But those boaters who are full-time cruisers and liveaboards, rules very much apply. Let's be realistic. Lots of you wrote us a comment and you have a free anchorages places you are. We've been a lot of places and we do know there are still a lot of free anchorages. The problem is this in here. If you want to go for a few days or a week or two to those anchorages, that's totally fine. But try to be in those anchorages. If you say a young person still have to have a job, there will be no job for you to have. Resupplying your boat, say for example getting a grocery or go to a post office, having Wi-Fi and so forth. We were up in Canada, and yes, it's true, Desolation Sounds and all those places, there are all kinds of anchorages. But we spent under 2 winters. Try to spend there a winter, you would not be able to resupply your boat, and the weather a lot of times would not permit you to sail into the town. So you're pretty much forced to go into the harbor where the harbor master enforces the regulations. And today, in a time of internet and the cameras, it's not very easy to being smart and try to hide, because they pretty much know about every single step you make, which we will discuss in our next video in Hawaii. Now, there is a saying, the land of free and home of the brave. Now let me say to you this here. It is hard to be free when you have to obey all those rules and regulations, and it's very hard to be brave when you have to obey them even if you don't agree with them.
On a brighter note, we did hear from many people that are cruisers around the world. Some people from the east coast of the United States, New Zealand, Pacific Northwest and Canada, Scotland and Ireland, that said that they have no problem anchoring where they are, not too many rules and regulations, so that's a good thing. And in our next video, we're going to be discussing what we planned earlier, which was the differences between the past and present of cruising in Hawaii. And before we leave, we'd like to thank all of you that support our channel through Patreon and PayPal. We really appreciate your support. And if you liked the video, please don't forget to leave a comment and a thumb up. We'd like to wish all of you a Merry Christmas
Christmas
and a
Happy New Year.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.